You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, and all those questioning the universe around them. I'm Ty.
I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talk Conspiracy. We are about to tackle File 004, our first episode following our month-long celebration of Halloween, Cultober.
That was fun. That was a lot
It
of
was.
fun.
It was a great month. I think this Cultober 2 topped Cultober 1.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep that tradition going. If you haven't, make sure you go to youtube.com/culttalknet and check out all the Cultober exclusives we have on there. Our Halloween special with Beetlejuice was really fun. Special episodes of Cult of Lore and special episodes of Cult Talk Conspiracy as well in there. So
those are great.
Fun stuff.
I loved covering Mothman. I can't wait to revisit Point Pleasant, both in theory and in person. That is such an amazing story. And the ocean at night. That was a wild one. That was crazy.
I really enjoyed that one. I'm glad I found that one. That was such a cool thing to look into.
That took just so many twists and turns that I just like I actually just very recently re-listened to it, and like even going back like through my notes, I'm like, what is going on here? Like it was nuts, and you covered it so well too. It was amazing.
Thank you. And Cult of Campbell came back. It's really fun. There's a lot of fun stuff in Cultober. So hope you guys listen to that. But now it's November, and Cult Talk Conspiracy, we have a jam-packed month.
Yes.
In November. This is going to be a good month. And we're kicking it off with File 004. And I did last episode, and I am returning the form and doing this episode as well. I'll be covering File 005. And this is the Men in Black is what I'm covering. And I'm going to call this the Men in Black the Beginning, because as I was researching this, there was just so much stuff I was finding. And I think what I did without really realizing is I just created kind of a picture of the origins of the Men in Black concept itself.
Oh.
So this is definitely something I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. I'm going to, I have 2 episodes this month. I'm going to make this a kind of a 2-parter where I'm going to follow up on this in my second episode of this month. I'm going to do another Men in Black episode as well. So this right here is going to be the beginning. I'm really diving into kind of where the Men in Black came from.
Oh.
And it was super interesting. They're like basically 3 guys who you'll hear about throughout this whole episode, who basically painted the picture of what we know as the Men in Black today, and it's really interesting.
Oh, this is cool.
It was a lot different than I was going for. It kind of happened in a similar way with the MH370, where I just kind of started researching. The more research, I got a much different picture of what I was going for. But
nice.
I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and it definitely I'm going to spawn out. File 007 will be a follow up to this, so you won't have to wait too long. Well, I'll book in the month.
Yes.
With some Men in Black stuff. And we might have something else coming up this month, so we'll keep you in waiting. But Men in Black, pretty synonymous. I mean, it's a pop culture thing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much been everywhere for me. Like, this was one of the ones that I actually grew up with, where the Men in Black. I know that's a shocker to pretty much everyone out there. Like, that was the part that got underneath the rock, guys. So, but no, my mom actually introduced me when I was young. I had to be only like 12 or 13, but my mom introduced me to the movie Men in Black with Will Smith.
Right.
And that was how I kind of got started on the whole Men in Black thing, I guess. And after that, it's like, do you know that that's like a real thing? Like, people actually saw Men in Black, and it was my mom who told me that. So she also played a hand in the conspiracy, Bailey, that we have now. So after that, I've heard stories about him. Of course, when I did my research with Mothman, there's a lot of stories with Men in Black and Mothman, even some with like Roswell, like none that I can find that were directly linked with Roswell, but in the time between Roswell and Mothman, there was
there was a lot of stuff there. That was interesting too. I didn't find any exact, Roswell instance. I was kind of shocked by that. I figured I'd find something that directly linked it to Roswell, but nothing I was able to find. So I'm sure if anyone has any idea of any like real life like Roswell direct Men in Black correlations, I'd love to hear that. But I couldn't find anything in my research.
That
I was kind of shocked by that.
That would pin it for me to that would pretty much just hammer that in that Men in Black are related to aliens. Like that would just be the constitutional truth that I need for that.
See, Men in Black, the movie, I'm pretty sure was the first movie I went to see in theaters.
Aw.
It was between that. It was either that or Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan. And one of those two movies, I have differing memories of. One of those movies was the first one I ever seen in theaters. I can't pinpoint which one exactly it was, but one of those movies I saw in theaters for the first time. That's awesome. And I can't remember which one it was, but I know for sure I saw them both in theaters. I remember seeing Men in Black in theaters and just being flabbergasted by the visuals and everything like that.
Yeah.
And a fun little like Calder Campbell note here I'll put in because Calder Campbell's our Bruce Campbell podcast. Bruce Campbell was originally supposed to play Edgar in that.
No way.
Yeah. He was supposed to play Edgar.
That would.
And he turned it down for Tornado, the Twister ripoff.
Oh.
Bad move, Bruce.
Bad move. Bad Brucey. Bad.
Yeah, for real. I think that would have been so cool to see him as Edgar.
It would have been so different though. It would have been so I don't know. I couldn't
slapstick, a lot more slap because we've seen Bruce in like Evil Dead and stuff where he's like, gyrating around and all that stuff. He's like possessed. I think that would have been pretty interesting to see. But
I don't know. I kind of would have liked to have seen Bruce's charm and humor with kind of the Edgar that we have in Men in Black.
Yeah, I would have loved to see. I wish he would have taken that role because that would have been so cool to see.
I don't know, but I love the Edgar that we have in Men in Black.
Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio, right?
Asking the wrong person.
Yeah, it's Vincent D'Onofrio.
Eric's not here for the movie review stuff. Sorry.
But yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, we're not talking about those Men in Black. Unfortunately, we're talking about the real Men in Black.
Yes, very scary.
The much more the much more menacing Men in Black. I think we can go ahead and talk about this here. I'm ready to unseal file 005, Men in Black, the beginning. So yeah, as I said, Men in Black, I was actually, one of the things that surprised me most about this is it was kind of difficult to research.
Yeah, I can agree.
And, I was thinking when I first brought it up, I was like, to me, I just have always known Men in Black. And I was like, surely I can Google Men in Black and it'll just come up with some stuff for me. And, growing up as a kid in the 90s, I was always kind of presented with the concept of Men in Black being like, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones flying around in advanced cars and blasting aliens with cool guns and colorful characters, or me as being like the nerdy little kid I was, Jesse Ventura, the wrestler turned politician, and Alex Trebek, the host of Jeopardy, as these cartoonish Men in Black in the X-Files.
Oh, yeah.
It's from my favorite episode of the X-Files is Josie Chung's from Outer Space, and that has Jesse Ventura and Alex Trebek as the Men in Black in that episode. That's my all-time favorite episode of X-Files. But and that's where the problem lies with researching the Men in Black. You're kind of getting this idea of these satirical figures that for the most part are mysterious, but they're relatively harmless,
Oh yeah.
So anytime you research the Men in Black, you're basically going to just get a bunch of images of Will Smith and black sunglasses looking cool. Mm-hmm. And this is the point where I'm going to kind of go off on kind of a bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back to where it's relative. But I'm going to bring it around. But have you ever heard of the Disney Frozen conspiracy? You ever heard of that?
So I've heard parts of it, and I've shut it off because Frozen is one of my favorite movies. Leave me alone. I'm 26 years old. It's one of my favorite movies.
So for anyone that doesn't know, after Walt Disney died in 1966, there was a popular urban legend that was born that instead of dying of cancer, as reported, that instead, being that Walt Disney famously surrounded himself with very innovative people and very interested in advanced technology. You can see at Disneyland, all the advanced stuff they have there, that he had himself cryogenically frozen. Now that in itself is its own conspiracy theory, but the actual Disney Frozen conspiracy I'm referring to actually involves the film Frozen.
Oh my God. For a second there, I was like, I totally misunderstood what he said, and I'm going to sound so fucking stupid.
It does kind of, it goes back around.
Oh, okay.
So based on the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Ice Princess. Now you can argue that perhaps the reason the title was changed is so Disney could put their own unique spin on the story.
Yeah.
But could there be another reason why they changed the name? Because originally it was The Ice Princess. Could it be to deter anyone looking to investigate the possibility of Walt Disney's cryogenic stasis? Because if you search Walt Disney Frozen, you're spammed with pages of Elsa and Anna and Olaf the Snowman. What I'm saying is could this be the case with the Men in Black film?
Oh, yeah.
To saturate the search results for Men in Black to deter from the truth.
Probably.
I don't know, but that was just a conspiracy fueled tangent I found myself on while I was researching this subject. I've read about the Walt Disney Frozen conspiracy. I think it's pretty fun. It is one of those things that would make sense because of the world we live in now. Everything's very search based.
Yeah. And
everything's based on keywords. And if you search Disney Frozen,
yeah,
you're not going to find Disney's cryogenic stasis. You're instead going to find like I said, Olaf and the moose and all that shit, rather than the actual frozen Walt Disney body information. So
Finn the moose.
Finn the moose. Is that what it was?
Finn the moose. His name was Finn with an S.
Finn. Okay, Finn. I've only seen the movie once.
Oh, I love that
first
movie.
one.
That's great. I believe the media would totally do something like that. I really do.
It makes sense.
I mean, just. Yeah, there's gonna be some views that come out about me. I don't think the media tells us the truth, man. I really.
Oh no, not at all. That does seem, like I said, it's very odd that it was the it's known as the Ice Princess, which is the original story, and why they didn't keep that. Which I feel like the Ice Princess is a very Disney-esque title.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that they kind of wanted to get away from she technically wasn't a princess. She was a queen. I mean, Anna was the princess. But I mean, first of all, I never got the name Frozen. I guess it was catchy and whatnot. And everything's frozen. But I never got the name. So hearing that theory, I'm kind of okay, so the Ice Princess would actually make a little bit more sense. Or the Ice Queen? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that. But it could be just a thing where, Disney wanted to have a name that they could market and copyright.
It totally could be that simple, but
conspiracy theories, you ignore the simple.
Yeah.
And you make things you look a little deeper. You read between the lines.
Oh yes.
That could be it. So anyway, I finally was able to get my footing with the Men in Black, and like I said, in our first segment there, I kind of had an idea of how I wanted it to go, and that kind of changed as I started to research because you kind of get a picture of where this concept came from as you research, and I think that's very interesting. And basically, there's three central characters we're going to be focusing on, or men. They're actually not characters; they're actual real life people.
Yeah.
There's three specific people we're going to focus on that you'll see all kind of have a hand in creating the modern day interpretation of a Man in Black is. So the best place to begin would be at allegedly the first reported run-in between someone and these mysterious men. I say allegedly because one thing I noticed while looking into reported encounters is the emotional impact on those involved, which really made me wonder how many have possibly had encounters with the Men in Black and just not reported them out of fear, because that's kind of one of the main tactics of the Men in Black is to suppress with fear, is to intimidate.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if, there's more people out there who have had these encounters.
Oh, I would.
And we just don't know about them.
Probably. I mean, I always operate on that stance that there's probably more that we don't know about, and there's probably some that might not even be telling the truth, just as an air of caution to myself that these things could be happening. But yeah, and in a lot of the stories that I read too, through previous research and then a little bit of research into this one. Yeah, there was don't be frightened. And my first question is, why would I be frightened? Already starting with the manipulation here. Should I be frightened?
Yeah.
Why am I frightened? Why are you asking if I'm frightened? How do you know if I'm frightened? So yeah.
Now, as the story goes, the year is 1947. Again, a year that keeps rearing its head here on Cult Talk Conspiracy. You're going to see a lot of overlay between, I'd say, Roswell and the Mothman episodes and this one because of certain people and dates and things like that. 1947, hotbed of UFO and alien activity. I would fair to say probably the most important year in ufology as far as all the activity and different things that were coming out of that year. A man by the name of Harold Dahl, along with his son and dog, were boating in the East Bay of Maury Island, Washington. Basically, what they were doing is they were collecting logs. I guess it's a way they would collect lumber. They basically go on the lake and find floating logs, and they would determine if they were suitable for lumber, things like that. So in the afternoon, they spotted 6 flying discs overhead that they actually reported discharged some sort of debris, which made Harold and his dog sick, Harold and his son sick, and sadly killed the dog. So I have a moment of silence for the dog. All right, there we go. Now, this reportedly occurred on June 21st, only 3 days before the infamous Kenneth Arnold incident. That's this is the 3rd episode if you count the undisclosed on youtube.com/culttalknet.
Yes.
This is the 3rd time we've mentioned Kenneth Arnold. Now, one thing I find so interesting, and I don't know if I brought this up in the Roswell or maybe in undisclosed, is that all these early UFO reports was always like they saw a fleet or multiple UFOs at once. It was never, there was obviously cases of that, but there was more cases where it was like, oh, we saw a cluster of UFOs. I thought that was very interesting.
I don't like it. Just because think about it with like,
oh yeah,
listen, like I hear a lot of battle tactics in this house. So like one that like I've heard a lot or at least seen a lot in movies is like you send in like a fleet first to like test the waters. And I'm just kind of like, oh, maybe they aren't now, but they probably, scout party. They might have, I don't know. Anyway, continue. I'm very interested.
That's classic Signs. Movie The Signs. They bring that up, like, oh, they're sending out like their feelers before they do the full invasion. That's a good alien flick.
That is such a good movie.
Now, the reason for the incident not being reported sooner is because Dahl claims he was visited by a man in a black suit who invited him to a local diner. It was here the man recounted Harold's experience to him in great detail, even details Harold had not reported to his foreman, who at this time was the only other person he had spoken with. The man in black then alluded that he knew far more about what Harold saw, but warned that if he told anyone what he had experienced, bad things would happen to him and his son.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so this guy, very threatening, very intimidating. It's one, which is something you find here later is kind of out of place, is just being one person.
Oh, okay.
It seems like here later you'll kind of get an idea of these men in black always travel in like a group, like a pair or a trio, seem to be a common. But for one, it kind of seems like an odd thing.
Yeah. And even in the stories that I've read, it's always two. There's only one that I can think of with one, but he's kind of special. Now,
this encounter was reported by Gray Barker. Now, this is one of the guys we'll kind of focus on quite a bit here is Gray Barker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he reported this in his encounter. The 1956 book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers.
I love it.
That was the title of it. And this book is what many credit as the first major introduction of the Men in Black to the mainstream. So much that Lau Cunningham would cite this book directly as inspiration for his Men in Black comic book. The comic that would later be adapted into the 1997 blockbuster Men in Black. So this book has a direct impact on the idea we have of the Men in Black today in popular culture. This would inspire the comic that inspired the movie.
And the book was
Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
And the book was based off of this encounter.
So They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers was a book where he basically just recounted.
Okay.
Early UFO encounters. Now Lowell Cunningham or Lowell Lowell.
I think it's Lowell.
I presume that's Lowell. Lowell Cunningham is the creator of the Men in Black franchise.
Okay.
He created the comic book that would then be turned into the movie.
Yes.
So this book right here has direct impact on the modern idea of mainstream Men in Black.
Fabulous.
So pretty crucial book in in this whole idea of the Men in Black so far.
Yes.
Now, interesting enough, although this book is credited as introducing the idea of the Men in Black, it is not credited for popularizing the term Men in Black. Barker would refer to these mysterious agents in black often just as mysterious agents in black, is usually what he would call them as, or just agents, visitors, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the popularized name would come in 1967's Men's Adventure magazine article, UFO Agents of Terror, written by none other than the famed ufologist John Keel,
Nice.
who coincidentally wrote the introduction to Barker's book, and in 1975 would publish his bestseller, The Mothman Prophecies.
Fabulous. He's a busy man.
Yeah, so John Keel is another one of the guys we'll focus on quite a bit in this.
Mm-hmm.
So Gray Barker, John Keel, there's two of our three we'll be focusing on that kind of help paint this picture of the Men in Black. And if you're taking shots for how many times I want to say Men in Black, be careful because it's a lot.
You're gonna die of alcohol.
Yeah, I imagine already. It's a lot. I kept trying to come up with different words to use, different names to use. I was writing it, but I was like, at a certain point, you gotta stick with the old faithful and use Men in Black.
Oh yes.
Now, one of the main focuses of Gray Barker's book was that of a man by the name of Albert K. Bender. Albert K. Bender is our third and final character we're going to introduce as this trio that helped define what Men in Black are. So Bender published a magazine in the early 1950s called Space Review as part of his International Flying Saucer Bureau. The publication was very popular amongst UFO enthusiasts, and Barker himself was a contributor. Bender would frequently receive letters from UFO eyewitnesses detailing their encounters with flying saucers. As popular as publication was, it abruptly ended in 1953 with a final issue that reported, "The mystery of the flying saucers is no longer a mystery. The source is already known, but any information about this is being withheld by orders from a higher source." So that was the last message he put out.
Very ominous. Why was it the last?
So after he put out they call it a magazine, but the way this sounds, it was more of a newsletter.
Okay.
Is what it sounds like. So basically, the last newsletter comes out with that message, and no one hears from Albert Bender for a minute. Now, Gray Barker was more than a frequent contributor because he had actually built up a relationship with Albert and considered him to be very close, and even was surprised by the sudden end to Space Review because they had such a good rapport and communication. He figured he would have gotten something from him. So this prompted Barker to go directly to the source and ask Bender why the publication had ended. As it was a very popular newsletter, and it wasn't like it was waning sales. It was a very popular newsletter amongst ufologists.
Yeah.
So in this book, Barker details Bender's encounter with a trio of shady figures in black suits who drove large Cadillacs. Now, Cadillacs, for whatever reason, Cadillacs are like synonymous with UFOs. It seems like they have a very specific brand of vehicle they like.
They like a good Cadillac, man.
They love Cadillacs. That's one thing I got from this thing. Anytime you find a mention of Men in Black, they always make sure to detail that they're driving black Cadillacs.
Yo, listen, I like an extraterrestrial with taste, okay?
Now, these figures' sole purpose was to intimidate individuals who had knowledge of UFOs and silence them by any means necessary.
Oh.
According to Bender, he had just came into possession of a sample of metal believed to be from a UFO. Now, I don't know if this was something like I couldn't find like direct information about this package he received, but basically he received a package with some sort of metal, and I kind of wondered if it could have been the same stuff that was discharged on Harold Dahl that made him and his son sick. I couldn't find any information if that's what it was, but both the articles I read just referred to it as metal, a sample of metal.
Interesting.
Believed to be from a UFO.
Okay.
Now, shortly after this, he was approached by three men who confiscated back issues of Space Review. These men were very intimidating, and Bender felt as though he was even being communicated with telepathically at some points during the interaction. These men told him, "In our government, we have the smartest men in the country. They cannot find a defense for any of this. How can you do anything about it?" implying his years of research were pointless toward proving anything about UFOs. Now, this is a guy who basically was his life work at this point. So they're basically telling him that what he's doing is pointless and in their own way trying to deter him from continuing. So after this encounter, Bender felt very ill and could not consume food for 3 days. In the years following the release of They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, encounters like this of Albert K. Bender would become frequent amongst people who claimed to have seen or encountered UFOs. Bender's encounter would almost become the standard template for reported incidents of contact with the Men in Black. So you'll see, like, that's kind of how all the encounters that we hear about with the Men in Black, that's pretty much how they go.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the number one thing for me is like, that's what sticks out to me is the telepathic detail. Or like people saying like they can't remember if they were moving their mouths or it occurred to them that they weren't moving their mouths or vice versa, them both or whatever. It's very interesting.
Now, Bender would refer to these men as silencers.
Ooh.
And although they were able to convince him to end Space Review, they did anything but silence him. After telling his story to Barker in its publication, and They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, the two would collaborate again in 1962 with the book Flying Saucers and the Three Men, which further detailed his encounter with the silencers and a second encounter he revealed. In this book, Bender explains his theory that the beings were not human, but rather from another planet. Now, he calls it a theory, but when you actually go into his actual encounter that he reports in the book, and again, that book is Flying Saucers and the Three Men. The Three Men referring to the silencers. Mm-hmm. He calls it a theory, but when you actually go into the encounter, it's more it's a fact, as you know, in his account. These beings actually just pretty much tell him that they're not humans. So his second encounter with the silencers, he notes that this trio of visitors did not actually walk, but hovered above the floor. Possibly because, as they would tell him, their human appearances were illusions, and that no one would believe him if he told of the visitation. Now, these figures also revealed that they captured people from Earth and used them to disguise their true form. Bender would include he would include a sketch, which you can find this sketch if you actually Google Albert K. Bender. There are two pictures, I believe, that he did sketches of the Men in Black and of the silencers, as he referred to them as. And basically, they're plain-faced men in suits with fedoras. And the one thing that he notes is that they had glowing red eyes.
Oh.
So these Men in Black that he encountered the second time seem a lot different than the three he encountered in the first book, because there's no mention in the first book about them floating or the glowing red eyes. They seemed like basically just very intimidating, mysterious men in the first book. Whereas in the second encounter he has with them, they kind of show a little bit more of their true form, it appears.
Interesting.
Now, despite being terrified of these silencers, Bender told his story over 2 books. But these books began years after his encounter. The first book being published over 15 years after which was no coincidence. So the first book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, was allegedly published 15 years after his first encounter with the trio. Ooh. Or 15 years after the second encounter. Now, this is no coincidence because Bender was only safe to disclose this information 15 years after the second encounter. You see, the silencers also told him that they were stationed out of Antarctica, where they were harvesting resources from Earth to send to their home planet. And this was a 15-year mission.
Why?
Now, apparently they had like tunnels, from what he was able to gather. They had some sort of tunnel system underneath Antarctica, the South Pole, that they were using to siphon water and all sorts of different resources from the Earth that they were then going to transport back to their home planet. Now, this is a 15-year mission, and they gave him a small medallion and said that it would vanish when they left the planet. And only then would he be able to tell people about this encounter. So he had this little medallion that as long as he could see it, he had to keep his mouth shut out of fear of being silenced. Have you ever heard that before?
I've heard about a coin, but I've never heard about a medallion.
Oh, same thing, tit for tat, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never heard of that before.
I just have
I've
questions.
never heard of them.
I have questions about why Antarctica. Like,
well, Antarctica, I mean, no one's there. I mean, people don't go to Antarctica.
yeah. I mean, I guess their technology is way more advanced than ours because I'm concerned about the water all freezing. Like if they're taking water from our, well, I guess you take frozen water and it adds that from Antarctica. Yeah. Oh, okay.
They probably have like some kind of heating element that's breaking it down into its liquid form, or they might just take an ice to do it later.
Right.
I mean,
this is all making sense. This is making too much sense. Okay.
Now, after the second book, Bender would, for the most part, leave the world of ufology. He would go on to create the Max Steiner Music Society, devoted to the music of Max Steiner. Never heard Max Steiner, don't know who he is. But apparently this was a big deal because it had such members as John Wayne and Fred Astaire. And Albert K. Bender is credited for finding several previously believed lost artifacts of Max Steiner. Again, I don't know who Max Steiner is.
He's just finding out everything, man. If you need something, you go to Bender.
Yeah, you go to Bender. If you want to know about Max Steiner, you go to Albert K. Bender. If
you want to know about UFOs and Men in Black, you just go to Bender.
Right. Now he would basically do this, and he would go on to, I believe, manage a hotel at some point, and he would die, and I think he was like 94, 96 when he passed away finally.
Okay.
Now, Gray Barker would continue working in the field of ufology, and he would have both influence and also be a very controversial figure in the world of ufology. He would continue to write books on the subject, which he reportedly referred to in private as his kooky books.
Oh.
You see, people close to Barker would claim that he found the entire idea of UFOs to be laughable and only entertained the idea because of the money, which his books did make a pretty good amount of. Nonetheless, Barker would go on to publish The Silver Bridge in 1970, which alluded to the connection between the Silver Bridge collapse and the Mothman. And this was 5 years before John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies. The interesting thing about Barker and Keel, they both collaborated years earlier. Keel wrote the introduction to They Knew Too Much About UFOs, or Flying Saucers.
Right.
Not only that, but they also both had very strong influences on the Men in Black phenomenon. Barker kind of introduced the idea, whereas Keel would go on to be the guy who popularized the term the Men in Black.
Right.
Now, they both made correlations between the Men in Black and the events surrounding the Mothman and the Silver Bridge. So they both had come to that conclusion that there was some sort of connection there.
I'm just kind of it's interesting because first of all, the kooky books really that already is kind of I'm not sure if I like this. So it's is your book with all the correlations with the Men in Black, are those a part of your kooky books, or
that's now he never referred to those in public, but he would with certain close friends and family, that's what he would refer to them as his kooky books. And he has one close friend who would claim that there was times when they would kind of joke about the absurdity of UFOs and aliens, and that Barker actually saw it as just one big money-making scheme.
Interesting.
Because people were just buying into this stuff, which we'll get into that a little later.
Okay.
So in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, Keel would detail encounters with phantom photographers.
Oh.
These strange men met the usual description of the silencers, but these photographers used a camera to photograph witnesses. The camera used reportedly had a blinding bright flash that left subjects disoriented as the photographers vanished. So basically, it would show up to a witness's house. I believe they would interview them briefly, and then they would ask for a picture or whatever publication they claimed to work for.
Uh-huh.
And upon doing so, they would take a picture. It would leave the subject disoriented, kind of confused, long enough for the phantom photographers, to leave. They'd vanish, poof, gone. By the time the person that had their picture taken recovered.
All I'm thinking of is like the little stick thing in the Men in
that's
Black
what
movie.
that's what I was thinking too. Like, I'm talking about this like this picture all coming together, and that's the first thing that came to my mind too. Was the deneuralizer?
Oh, good. The
Yeah,
deneuralizer.
from Men in Black. That's the first thing that caught my attention when I was reading that.
Yeah, because it has like that really bright flash and like, yeah. And I mean, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Now, as with the Men in Black, the photographers were all black, had no distinguishable features, and of course, drove large black Cadillacs. These weren't the only phantom people running around that Keel detailed. He also detailed reports of phantom meter readers.
Oh, like
Yeah.
house meters?
Yes.
Oh.
So these would appear around the same time, and these men dressed in all black overalls, probably drove black Cadillacs, and would come to homes claiming they needed to read the gas meter, usually in the basement. These people also would have just recently had some sort of contact or witness some sort of UFO activity.
Right.
So they would come, they would say, hey, we're from whatever the local utilities company is. We need to read your meter. Can we go down to your basement? So they would go down the basement, and then when the occupant of the homeowner would go to check on them, they would just be gone.
Oh, no.
Now, I have a theory that probably what they were doing, because I was reading that, and there really wasn't much follow-up on it anywhere I looked. It was like all these just weird things that happened. My theory is they probably were doing, I would say, is probably planting bugs, like microphones or something like that. That's what I would assume. They're going down the basement. They're probably putting something on the floorboards, and then them disappearing. I mean, obviously that's some sort of supernatural element to it, but to me, that's what I would imagine they're doing is sneaking down there. No one's around. They're planting a bug so they can hear your conversation.
That makes a lot of sense. Like that makes perfect sense to me. I can't imagine what else they'd be doing other than like tracking where the person lives, but like they already know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like
racking up their gas bill, tweaking the meter.
Just turning shit off like, this is fine.
Yeah. No more cold, no more hot showers for you, and they'll freak out. They'll psychologically fuck with them.
That's awful. For like if someone asked to come into your house to read the meter, say no. Especially if you've just seen an alien, say no.
Yeah. I mean, unless like your gas company, but I don't know. Maybe call your gas company.
Call your gas company. No, take no chances. Call the gas company.
That's probably good rule of thumb. Anyways, I imagine this would be a pretty good way for someone to enter your home.
They can enter your home.
Especially like an old person. Be like, hey, I need to read your meter, and they break in and steal your shit.
Steal everything.
I'm always very wary about letting anyone in my house. So
I don't let anyone in my house. Well, unless you're my friend. In that case. Well, I mean, the dog will sound, but if you get used to being here. Anyway, I'm giving burglars too much information.
Now some of the residents of Point Pleasant who witnessed the Mothman found themselves interviewed by strange men in black suits, as eyewitness Linda Scarberry claimed. Now, she was one of the first people to report a sighting of the Mothman. You probably are familiar with her from your research of the Mothman. Yeah, she was one of the one of the married peoples in the car, I believe. Yes. And she actually, I was kind of reading a little about her. I went on with a little side note. She actually was very affected by the Mothman. And I remember I read a quote from her saying she wished she would have never seen it. It just messed with her so bad. Aww. She wished it never would have happened. So she did not have a good experience. She claims that these black men wearing suits came to her house looking to interview her, and they looked human, but with transparent skin. You could see the veins in their hands, she said, and their fingers were longer than a normal man's. Linda's father greeted these men when they arrived to do the interview, and Linda said her father attempted to shake their hands, but it was very awkward, almost like they had never shaken hands before. So he goes to shake their hand, and they had no idea what was happening. Said it was very awkward. It was very just robotic the way they kind of did it. Very awkward situation there. So she was interviewed by these men, and she said it was very cold. They were very monotone. And one thing she noted is they never blinked. The entire time they were there, they never once blinked.
That's so unnerving. Like,
Right?
have you ever been talking to someone and like you just take note, like this person hasn't blinked yet?
I never paid much attention to it, but I imagine maybe if I did, yeah, I imagine it's probably one of the things you would pick up on if you're having a conversation and the person wasn't blinking.
It's instant.
I feel like that's something you'd probably eventually be like, wait a second.
It's instant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of my new nieces, she's only like 2 months old. She doesn't blink. Like, I mean, she does, but not
Creepy.
often enough. And I'm like, this baby's creepy. But I love her. She's amazing.
Now, other Mothman witnesses found themselves followed by black Cadillacs. That would follow them all over the town. They would catch them in the rearview mirror, things like that. Several other witnesses reported similar incidents as Linda's, where these men would show up to their house and you interview them, and they noticed that they had featureless faces and the no blinking, just very, very unsettling characters, basically. They were very unsettling to be in the presence of, is what a lot of people noted. You immediately just had this feeling of dread when you finally encountered one.
Oh, gross.
Now, John Keel would become extremely interested in the Men in Black, to the point where he was actively hunting them.
Oh, don't do that.
Keel provided contact info to law enforcement and eyewitnesses all over West Virginia and Ohio. And he would contact, so basically when he was doing his investigation for the Mothman and various UFO sightings like that, he would always end by, here's my number, here's you can contact me. And he would even kind of warn them, like, you may receive a caller or visitation from, a mysterious duo or trio of men in suits. And if you do, call me immediately. He would basically just tell them, like, I'm trying to get a hold of these people. Mm-hmm. So he would give his contact information, and these people would contact him at first sight of these visitors. In every instance, Keel would arrive just having missed them.
Oh,
so he would always arrive just on the heels of every time.
Oh,
so
no.
Keel would host several lectures focusing on his search for the Men in Black, even discussing a supposed encounter he had while walking in New York, where a man, what he described as a pointed-faced man, popped out, took a picture of him, and ran away.
Oh.
Keel believes this to have been an encounter with a phantom photographer. The phantom photographers seem to be like one of his deviations of the Men in Black, because I don't really see it much anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But these a lot of people in the West Virginia Point Pleasant stuff, they would talk about these phantom photographers not only as the men that would show up their house and take a picture, mm-hmm. but just people taking pictures of their house.
Oh,
like they would report these these black Cadillacs that pull up. And it was a very large camera. These men would get out. They set up this gigantic tripod with a very large-looking, odd camera, take pictures, load it back up, and just go.
Oh,
so that was another variation of the phantom photographers.
So much I don't think so.
It could all just be part of that scare tactic, intimidation thing. If someone's taking pictures of your house, it's going to unsettle you.
Yeah, but maybe I'm just an aggressive person, because I'm like, I'll go outside.
Well, yeah, definitely. If someone's taking a picture of your house,
you're like, excuse you. Are you? Well, I have to keep in mind of the context of the time is like people didn't do these things. Like, I mean,
right? There wasn't probably not. There probably wasn't a lot of a lot of concern with it, or a lot of understanding of what actually was happening at this time.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like, everyone still trusted the government. So
yeah,
look how far we've come. But it's just all so unnerving, and a lot of it really is like all these scare tactics and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, someone taking a photo of your house, like, that is unnerving. Like, I even get nervous if like the Amazon guy's taking a photo of my front porch, because I'm like, do you save that on your phone? Like, no. Yeah.
I had a window washers at my apartment not too long ago, and they sent an email out and just told us all to close our blinds and everything, because these window washers. I thought that was just so weird. I don't know. It was like, I didn't have any weird instance with it, but it's so weird. Just these, I'm on the third floor, and there's a guy, outside my window.
Just hi.
it was just weird to me. I thought it was kind of odd, but yeah, stuff like that's very unsettling. I could definitely see how that would be an intimidation tactic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, although Keel had a particular interest in the strangers, it was unclear, like with Bender, who suspected these BETs, it was unclear if Keel ever drew that conclusion, because in reading about John Keel, he actually kind of struggled with the entire concept of aliens.
Really?
He was I would say out of all the people I've ever read about as far as ufology, I would say he is probably one of the more credible ufologists because he was able to admit like he was questioning this whole concept because he was looking for definitive proof. That's what he really wanted. He wanted definitive proof, and he was unable to draw that conclusion. Keel would present in his 1970 book Operation Trojan Horse the concept of ultra-terrestrials.
Ultra?
Now, this is a very interesting concept he came up with because he doubted the concept of extraterrestrials, these beings coming from space to interact with humans. He doubted that concept. It to him didn't make a lot of sense. But he did acknowledge there was some sort of presence that was beyond our understanding that wanted to interact with humans. And he kind of theorized it to be like advanced civilizations or even humans from the future, like, you know, some sort of time travelers is kind of what he theorized. He just had and that's where he came up with this ultra terrestrials. Now, these ultra terrestrials are in a sense non-human. You know, he identifies they can't be defined as humans, whether that is they can't be defined originally or that they have evolved far past the ability to, you know, immediately be referred to as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Let's refer to them as non-human entities. And these entities are capable of taking form of whatever they wanted. And he theorized these beings manipulate human beliefs for centuries and were the source of things like ghosts, demons, monsters, and even vampires. These beings could be this concept could be the entities that maybe are behind the Men in Black, I guess, beings. So these ultra-terrestrials are what he came up with. So it's a very odd. So basically, the way he kind of put it is these entities have just been manipulating our entire belief system and all the fantastical, mythical beliefs that we've had, or people claim to have, you know, I saw a demon, I saw a ghost, I saw Bigfoot, I saw a vampire, a werewolf, or whatever. It would just be these entities that are taking this form to kind of manipulate us and, you know, unsettle us, I believe, is what he was claiming.
That's a big thing to digest.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. Just everything that we have, it kind of reminded me of like Pennywise.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I would kind of draw that with. You know, the Pennywise from the Stephen King books and films. It's like this being that just kind of like preys on, you know, our fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or our understanding is more, I guess, what this would be.
I want to know why, though, like, is the thing. Like, what?
Yeah, I'm interested in that too. Like, so that's kind of what this Operation Trojan Horse, that's kind of the, I'm guessing that's kind of the title comes from, you know, the Trojan horse, this horse that wasn't all that it was made out to be. You know, it was basically a vehicle for these troops to get within the walls.
You mean it wasn't just a condom?
It wasn't just a condom. Trojan is far more than that. But I wonder if that's kind of like what the idea of that book is, that these ultra terrestrials are maybe trying to infiltrate human society, maybe by manipulating our beliefs and, you know, scaring us or making us question and things. I mean, I don't know. It's very interesting. I find that ultra terrestrial idea. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting when I came up upon it. I'm kind of interested in reading that Operation Trojan Horse.
Yeah, I've got it written down here. So
yeah, cause we've dove into the Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. I would be interested to see what this book has to do.
Absolutely. I want to know more about these ultra terrestrials, because that's really interesting. And my first thought was, oh, they took all the fun out of everything, which I know is probably not how we should think of that. However, it's just kind of like, it's such a large thing to digest, that all these things that we believe are so many could just be a cause of one thing that is manipulating or even testing us in a way.
Yeah. That could be, you know, why during the, you know, the Mothman events, that was, you know, the Mothman, the Men in Black, all those different UFOs, all these things kind of correlating. Could have just been this one entity, or this one group of entities, because he does claim that these things could also be behind such things as UFOs and things like that. Basically, anything that we see that we don't understand, it could be these ultra-terrestrials manipulating our beliefs.
I wonder if the test is who will actually talk after being threatened like that, like very ominously and like manipulative, like who's going to stand up and actually talk. I don't know. Very interesting. I want to know.
So, John Keel, he would pass away, I believe, in the 90s, I believe, in New York. Right. He was a bachelor. He would pass away. Mothman Prophecies, of course, would be his magnum opus bestseller. People still read it today, talk about it today. There's a movie based on it. So, I mean, it was a very successful work for him. But we'll go back to Gray Barker now, because Gray Barker really is the center of all this. He would write his final book in 1984 entitled Men in Black, The Secret Terror Among Us. He would sadly die that same year. Barker would be the subject of 2 documentaries, Whispers from Space in 1995 and Shades of Grey in 2008. And these are both documentaries that focus solely on him. Now, in the years following his death, close friends and family would come forward to call Gray's credibility into question. His sister Blanche being the one to propose the idea that he only wrote about UFOs because of how much money he was able to make off of them. Now, a close friend by the name of John C. Sherwood frequently exchanged letters with Barker or with Gray, and they were very close friends. They communicated a lot. He would write an article titled "Gray Barker, My Friend, the Mythmaker." In it, he acknowledges that though the concept may have been rooted in some truth, where members of the military and government would discourage people from investigating or reporting UFO sightings, the otherworldly elements of the Men in Black were solely embellished by Barker. Sherwood claimed to have had a hand in this. So what he claims is that he would basically write letters to Barker. Now, this was something that Barker came up with. It was Barker's idea, allegedly. He claimed that he would write letters to Barker in this magazine called Flying Saucers. It was a magazine published by Raymond A. Palmer, who would also was the editor of Amazing Stories and Fate Magazine. Fate Magazine famously was the magazine that reported the Kenneth Arnold incident.
Okay.
At this time, Barker was working for Flying Saucers magazine, and Sherwood would write him letters as Dr. Richard H. Pratt. Now, Richard H. Pratt claimed that he had uncovered the truth of UFOs, that they were actually time-traveling vehicles, and that he was silenced by black men, is what he referred to them as.
Okay.
He was silenced by black men from reporting the UFO time-traveling evidence. And allegedly, the fans of, apparently the Flying Saucer fans and even other people on the Flying Saucer magazine just ate this whole concept up. Yeah. They loved it. These mysterious men who were silencing people who knew about UFOs. And that was what spurred Barker to start this whole big ruse of the Men in Black, as we know it today. So that's kind of what Sherwood claims. But there's a lot more to it when you kind of dissect things. Barker may have, in a sense, created this concept, but there are other people outside of Barker who claim to have experienced encounters with these beings.
Right. Yeah. That are from far, far different areas as well. I mean, you get these across state lines, across, different cities and whatnot. So it's hard to play like the mass hysteria.
Now, there is an interesting have you ever heard of the game Telephone?
Yeah.
So it's where, if I say, basically, I come up with a phrase, I say it to you, you repeat the phrase to someone else, but you embellish a little more onto it, and they embellish a little more onto it. And by the time it gets to the end of the end of the telephone or back to the person, it's this totally different thing.
Oh, yeah.
So there is an idea that the whole Men in Black concept is kind of victim to the game of telephone kind of effect.
Aww.
So it's no secret that during the early days and years of the Flying Saucer pandemonium, the big craze, Roswell, Arnold, all this stuff, Mothman, everything, all this crazy stuff that's happening around this time. The government did take this seriously at a certain point. They were concerned because, as we discussed a lot in the Roswell episode, the time period was the Cold War, and there was so much uncertainty and fear in our country that it would be just reckless of them to not take some sense of truth to it. You have to at least investigate.
Yeah, at least determine what's not real first,
Right. So these people who would claim to have seen a UFO or experience some sort of phenomenon would often be visited by government or military agents of some kind. Now, it is possible that, because even Sherwood kind of acknowledges this, he does acknowledge that there is truth rooted in the concept of Men in Black.
Right.
Because it's no secret that we were actively investigating. There were people who were sent out to bumfuck nowhere, Ohio, to check out, somebody saw a strange light in the sky.
Yeah. Because
we had to take everything seriously because of the state of the world. It is possible that this is, the telephone effect, couple probably grouchy guys from the government show up. They're not happy they had to travel out to the middle of nowhere to talk to somebody who claims that, they saw flying discs above their trailer.
Yeah.
They come in and start asking questions. That person probably gets very uneasy because there's government types coming in to talk to them about these flying discs. They tell their friend tells their friend, and before you know it, their aliens have showed up to, harass people. I mean, it's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, but all of them wearing black suits and fedoras, driving a Cadillac. That
could be one of those things that kind of does come in that telephone effect, because Gray Barker did introduce that concept, and it was a very popular concept. These mysterious men in black with Cadillacs. I mean, it could have been, for all we know, the truth could be, two guys in polos and khakis show up in their Volkswagen, and that person tells their friend who's like, "Oh, that sounds awful like the Men in Black." Oh, you saw the Men in Black. That's kind of that's kind of how that thing happens.
Yeah.
Because I don't for a second doubt that there were people around this time in our country, in our government, who were actively trying to suppress this kind of stuff. Because as much fear and anxiety that this country was in at this time with the Cold War, the last thing you want is a bunch of people claiming that there are these unchecked, unknown flying machines buzzing over our heads, because we're supposed to be protecting this airspace from nuclear warheads from the Soviet Union.
Oh yeah.
So there is something there, because I do think there probably is a need to suppress that kind of information.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we had and during that time frame, it was very soon thereafter we had dropped bombs, I believe, in Japan. I can't remember the name of the city. Help me.
Hiroshima.
Yes, Hiroshima. Thank you. Someone's out there going, "Come on."
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Tell Ben you forgot the name of it.
He hears me. It's fine. I know. But yeah, so like things coming out of the sky and things being in the sky, I'm sure that was super unnerving, because it's like, well, look what our government just did. Someone could be doing that to us. So yeah, wanting to squash fears like that of things being in the sky, that's totally understandable to want to get that gone and just be like, no, you guys are fine. You are protected.
Now, there are rare cases. I was able to find one prominently where the Men in Black were, there actually is video evidence of the Men in Black. There is an incident, I could not find a date on it. There was an incident that took place at Niagara Falls. Apparently, an employee of one of the hotels at Niagara Falls one night had looked out over the falls, and there was a massive UFO just hovering over the falls. And I believe this was because the video that I'm going to reference here, not the UFO, but the video of the Men in Black was posted to YouTube originally in, I think, 2013. So you can only imagine that the UFO video was taken around that time as well.
Okay.
So around 2012, 2013, cameras were pretty good, especially on your cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that was around the time I got my first iPhone with, a really nice high definition camera on it and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The employee recorded this UFO, and it apparently was a very vivid, hyper real, no arguments video of a UFO hovering over the Niagara Falls.
Oh.
Now, the next day, this employee calls in sick. He doesn't show up to work, but these two men enter the hotel lobby and demand to see him. The lady at the desk tells him, he's not here.
Mm-hmm.
And they accuse her of lying. They pressure her. They leave. They go walk around the entire hotel through the halls, push their way to the back, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
looking for this guy. And then after they find he's not there, they just leave.
Huh.
And you can find on YouTube, the video of them walking into the hotel. And they are exactly what they've been described as. These two big guys. You can see them when they walk in. They're huge guys.
They're ginormous.
Because there's one guy that walks by them, and you can tell they're sizably larger.
Mm-hmm.
Black trench coat, black fedora, no real features to their face, just plain looking white guys enter the hotel room. So there is that. That was really the only real notable video, or I guess photographic evidence I was able to find of the Men in Black. There are a couple more I think I found, or that are known amongst conspiracy theorists,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pretty sure they've been debunked.
Yeah.
These like photos of like just men in lobbies or train stations where there just happen to be a bar of static over their face.
Yeah.
Because that's also a theory or part of the folklore, is that if you were to take a picture of a Man in Black, their face would be mysteriously skewed.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, that's part of the folklore. In this whole thing, I think there is Men in Black in the bare sense of it. That there are these agents who their sole purpose is to suppress information, by it be to protect the government, the people, whatever it may be. I do believe there are people who their job is to suppress this kind of information. It's the extraterrestrial element I have questions of.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of evidence. Gray Barker, he is a very controversial figure in ufology. He is credited with basically there are two schools of thought. Either he did this very daring thing of exposing the Men in Black, or he did this very stupid thing of creating the hoax of the Men in Black. So it's very he's very controversial. Now, there is a Gray Barker room at the Waldemar Hotel or Waldemar building, and that is in Clarksburg, West Virginia. There's a Gray Barker room, and it holds a collection of Gray Barker's writings, as well as files corresponding between Barker and notable figures in the UFO field from the 1950s to the 1980s, such as George Adamski, Howard Menger, James Moseley, and others. The room is kind of a tourist stop, or like a draw for UFO enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm. No relation to James Moseley, by the way. No.
So if you're ever in Clarksburg, you can visit the Herald and the Gray Barker room, which would be kind of interesting.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
I kind of want to go see that. Because that would be super cool, just for like the UFO community and whatnot to go into.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually really like to look at these documentaries, which these documentaries, from what I understand, are kind of damning of him. They are just kind of like the people that knew or believe that he was this hoaxer, kind of spilling their guts on these schemes that he had. Because I guess he also, there was, I believe it's this George Adamski guy,
okay,
who was a pretty prominent UFO investigator. He apparently wrote letters to Adamski, claiming to be a member of the United States government, and basically just saying, "Hey, we're very happy with the research you're doing in UFOs. Keep it up." Basically, kind of deterring him from going. I guess maybe to choke him up, or maybe get him to look in a different direction, to not interfere with Barker's research. And Barker himself would actually describe that as he would be like, "Oh, it's one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the UFO field."
Oh God.
And apparently he was the one writing this. So
Oh, no.
the letters were written on State Department stationery, and I guess I guess he did a book on Adamski in the 60s. He actually wrote a book about Adamski.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, apparently he and the this Mosley guy were the actual authors of the letter
Oh
that
God.
they sent to Adamski under the name R.E. Straith. So there's these different things about him, and also the fact that there are letters. John C. Sherwood is actually the guy who presented the personal letter where Barker refers to his books as kooky books.
Oh.
You know, his kooky books.
Oh man.
Which that's pretty damning. So
That's
I don't know.
most damning for me. I'm like, kooky books? Excuse you? Like, I honestly was a
Yeah,
little
it's-
insulted. Like,
It's very insulting. The kooky books.
a kooky
Yeah,
books.
it's very insulting term for them. But I mean, so what are your thoughts on the Men in Black? I'm curious, Bailey. 'Cause I obviously did like some very deep research. I think it kind of
Yeah.
did make me question my concept of the Men in Black.
You've made me question a lot about the Men in Black. So I actually have seen the hotel video that you're describing, and they are very, very big. Like, I just remember their shoulders being so
Yes.
broad and so big. Whether that's due to the trench coat, and like if you have a suit on underneath of a trench coat, it makes your shoulders look bigger. So yeah, so that's a very jarring video. The thing that probably surprises me the most is the ultra terrestrials, and then the concept of telephone being played with all this. Because first of all, telephone is something that I had not considered, and maybe that is like kind of debunking the Men in Black. So that's something that I haven't given a whole lot of thought to, that is now entered my brain.
I wouldn't say it debunks the Men in Black. 'Cause I
that's not the
do
right
think, like as John C. Sherwood put in his article, this whole idea, this whole concept that Barker created, it is rooted in fact.
Yes.
I think that it's kind of a correlation of people actually being accosted by agents of the government,
Mhm.
and this otherworldly idea of what these agents are that Gray Barker conceived. That's why I think it is. I think that people did get accosted by agents, and they're already confused. They're probably scared.
Mhm.
They're definitely intimidated by these government agents, you know, having just believed to have seen a UFO of some kind. And now there's these people who represent them as members of the government coming to interview you. I mean, it's probably very unnerving.
Oh yeah.
And it's probably one of those things you tell someone and they know what the Men in Black are. They probably say, "Oh, you ran into the Men in Black."
Mhm.
Then that person tells someone else, "Oh, hey, Bailey saw the Men in Black."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she said they were, just like in the books. They were in black suits. And, oh wow, yeah. Ty said that Bailey saw a Man in Black and he had a black suit. And
Yeah.
I guess he drove a black Cadillac too. And
I guess it all matches. It all fits.
Yeah.
That, and like, I don't know. It's something that I just kind of thought of was, if someone from the government, or, anyway, someone from the government's coming to your house about a story you told, you're almost in my mind, I would kind of feel like I'm in trouble.
yes,
And maybe that's like that little kid portion of me, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, so,
yeah. And wouldn't you have you ever been like very like, it's probably like in school
Mhm.
when you get like in trouble and you get caught by your teacher or whatever, you kind of do zone out.
Yeah.
And like you don't really remember what just happened. You just, because your whole body's like tensed up, you've seized up,
Yep. Yeah.
and you come out of it very disoriented. You're just like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. What am I
Yeah.
going to do now? Like, what am I going to tell my mom, my dad? And you really don't remember a whole lot of like what actually transpired
Right. Yeah.
in this, when you finally do get caught.
Right. You're just like, I answered the questions. And
Yes,
then,
I answered the questions, and the whole time you're like zoned out, just thinking like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
like,
Am I getting suspended? Am I getting detention?
you're so focused on your nerves in that scenario. Like, for me, I always like go back to my hands. I'm always like, are my hands shaking? Am I showing that I'm nervous? And like that would distract me.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I was like that. I was like, oh man, I don't want them to know I'm scared.
Right. And you're trying so hard to like calm yourself down. You kind of zone out from everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, and those are aspects that like I hadn't thought of about the Men in Black. And then like going back to the ultra terrestrials, man, that's a whole other thing. That's just a whole other ball game to play. And I was not prepared for it.
I know. I think that definitely has to be a future episode at some point.
That definitely does. We've got to revisit that. We really have to revisit that because I've got it written down here on Operation Trojan Horse. It's probably going to be in my Audible library very, very soon.
Yes.
Because that's got to be explored more. I want to know why. I want to know where they came from. I want to know if it goes into like hollow earth theory. Like I need to know. I have to know these things.
Yeah, I was very curious of like how long have these beings been messing with us? Like how long have they been manipulating human beliefs? You know, could it go back as far as like Christ, angels, things like that? You know, Greek gods. You know, if you read like a lot of Greek mythology, you know, humans were just openly interacting with mythological gods and stuff. Could that be something? I mean, a lot of interesting stuff can come from that ultra terrestrial thing. It could be kind of rooted in a lot of different things. It seems like one of those rabbit holes.
Or even like ancient Egyptian like lore or Norse mythology, like all the different, like I'm just thinking of like all the lores that like I've researched and like all the mythical and just weird beings.
It's one of those things that could be like a go-to for anything.
Right.
Yes. You saw a ghost, ultra terrestrial.
Yep.
You saw a UFO, ultra terrestrial.
So let me ask you
this. Spoke to God, ultra terrestrial.
So let me ask you this. Do you believe in ghosts more or ultra terrestrials more?
Probably ultra terrestrials.
Oh!
Yeah. I don't believe in ghosts because I don't believe in an afterlife. So to me, ultra terrestrials, this like entity it's more plausible to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't have I don't believe in the afterlife. So that's why I don't have a belief in ghosts.
Mm-hmm. I probably would say they're about even for me. Like there's even chances of there being there because I believe in different dimensions and whatnot. We'll talk about it later. Well, go to the Reddit, go to the Cult Talk Net Reddit. I will be there. We'll have conversations. So like I think there could definitely be like I've seen ghosts or an ultra terrestrial. Which one? Either way, I've seen one of the two. So
it's one of those things, you know. I saw Bigfoot. I think I've seen Bigfoot a couple times. Maybe I just saw ultra terrestrials.
Maybe.
You know?
I don't know.
It's one of those things.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe they're preparing us more for the Men in Black than they are the aliens. Let that sink in.
Could be.
Maybe.
But yeah, this definitely. I mean, I've always known about the Men in Black. They're one of those things that when I was a kid, '96. That's when the Men in Black movie came out, and that kind of embedded them into pop culture from that point on. You know, they were obviously there before Men in Black, the movie, came out. Pop culture, I know they were in, I'm pretty sure Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but I saw a lot of pictures of Men in Black, Doctor Who.
Yeah. There was a TV show, because like when I was trying to research Men in Black, it kept coming up with this TV show. I think it was on the History Channel.
Oh yeah, there was a Men in Black show on the History Channel. Project Blue Book. You ever seen that show?
No, I haven't, but I've heard really good things about it.
That's a great show.
Okay.
There's only 2 seasons of it. It got canceled for the 2nd season, but it's a really interesting show.
Okay.
Yeah, really good one. I always talk about that one and that show. It's Steven Spielberg's Taken.
Yep.
2 great shows that people, if you're into UFOs, you should check them out. Taken, I think, is the superior one because Taken has it's an arc. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and it's very interesting. It's a very good show. But Men in Black, it's something I've always known about. It's even like in X-Files, you could claim that Mulder and Scully would be Men in Black types. You know, they're government agents who track down people who have experienced weird phenomena. And that is kind of the way I see Men in Black. It's the extraterrestrial element that I have a problem with. And I think in researching this, it probably splintered that idea even more in reading more about Gray Barker in particular.
Yeah.
Albert K. Bender. There are a lot of people who kind of think he may have been suffering from delusions, like hallucinations and dementia. Mm-hmm. There are people that believe that. Because also his wife claimed to have had crazy paranormal encounters as well with beings and stuff.
Interesting.
Now John Keel, I think I have a lot more of a I give him probably a little more respect for him.
Yeah.
The fact that he's able to say, like, I don't believe in this, I can't find any solid, but it is kind of interesting. He's able to come out and say, like, I don't think there's any basis in extraterrestrials, but hey, here's this thing called ultra terrestrials. I think is pretty interesting. So it's like,
go ahead.
It's like, what is that? What's there that drew him to that concept rather than extraterrestrials?
Yes, exactly. And I always love it when a person is just so honest to their core. That's like, listen, I've done the research. I've tried to talk to these people. Like, because to me, that's like, no, he wants to find something and he's just not. So for him to come out and say, like, guys, I don't think it's here, but like, oh my gosh, there's just so much of there's like an elevation to that. Like, I don't know, like, it's already like, I just have a lot of respect for someone that can come out and say that, and like, good for him.
Right.
I did read part of Mothman Prophecies, and it's pretty good. It's got a lot of Men in Black encounters.
Now, one of the things that going into this, you see, I will reference X-Files a lot because that is like one of my end-all be-all favorite shows of all time. It made me it shaped a lot of who I am. I went into this as a molder, and I came out of Scully because at the end of it, I was just like, I can't really buy into this after reading this. I think there was too much damning information on Gray Barker.
Yeah.
In particular, and these people and it's one of those things. The thing with conspiracy theories, you could easily be like, well, they're smearing him because he came on the truth. I mean, that's one of those things with conspiracy. You can always do that with conspiracies.
Oh yeah.
And you gotta be careful because it can't all be true.
No.
And once you start believing in everything, that's when there starts to be doubt cast on everything.
Listen, when your friends come out and say that about you, because like if Ty came out and said, yeah, Bailey said it was the kooky books.
Yeah.
Like, I would be so mad. Like, but also, like, there's some credibility on the people that are saying this as well. Like, I believe you said his sister, his friends. So it's like these are people that, in
they were
theory,
close to him. They were close to him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that to me, looking at the source of where it's coming from is a big part for that, and just where it's coming from tells a lot about it. So that was just as damning as what was being said, in my opinion.
Now, like I said, I'm going to make this into a two-parter because I feel like we've covered, or I feel like we've covered the kind of paranormal aspect of it with these entities from other worlds coming here to intimidate people. But what I want to look in the next chapter I do on this, which is going to be File 007, is I want to take a look at what I'm going to refer to as the real Men in Black.
Ooh.
Because there are, like I said, I do believe in the Men in Black. I just do not believe in the extraterrestrial versions of them, I guess would be the best word.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that there is a lot of truth rooted into the folklore of the Men in Black. So what I'm going to do in the next chapter I do on File 007 is I'm going to explore the actual people who I think are the Men in Black. And there are several interesting people who you can actually find in history who are Men in Black, what we refer to as Men in Black.
Oh,
and it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
very
I'm
interesting tactics that the CIA has pulled that you could also kind of equate to very Men in Black-esque doing. So, I mean, that's what I want to do in File 007 is, we're calling this Men in Black the beginning because I want to take a look at where this concept came from. And in the next chapter, File 007, I'm going to come back and we're going to take a look at what I believe to be the real source of the Men in Black.
I'm excited. I'm very excited to hear about this. I don't quite know what I'm in for just hearing about it on the first whiff of it, but I'm very excited. I cannot wait.
It's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to start diving into this.
I just can't wait to hear what the people who were the Men in Black have to say about the tactics and whatnot, and that'll be interesting.
It should make for a pretty good one. I'm very excited for that one. But I think this right here, was a good introduction to this concept, and I think to kind of, there are people who believe in this Men in Black concept, and it might even be we see the video from Niagara Falls of the Men in Black entering the building and stuff like that. And it might even be that maybe the real Men in Black started to kind of adapt that folklore just as an added element of intimidation.
Yeah.
If people really believe that there's these extraterrestrial beings, maybe they're like, all right, let's shave our heads, try not to blink, and you fire up the Cadillac and let's go see these people.
Let's do it.
That might be where this all comes. It might be one of those kind of things.
Go press your black suit. We're going. Shine your
right.
shoes. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, you already know what they're going to be intimidated by. Why not feed into it?
Yeah, because if you're trying to suppress information or intimidate, just feed into fear. I mean, that's how you're going to do it.
And when you already know, why not use the weapons that you know? So
yeah. I feel like you can do a lot less actual stuff. You just kind of like buy into it, walk a little differently, pretend like you don't know how to shake a hand. That's going to throw people off. It's going to really unsettle somebody. Now, the translucent skin thing, that's probably a little harder to pull off. I feel like that Linda Scarsbury reported. That's weird.
There's just a very dehydrated person.
Yes. Yeah. that is weird because there are, people do kind of mention the characteristics of these entities when they do encounter them. And that's interesting to me. Those are the ones that stick out. Linda Scarsbury mentioning the translucent skin where you can see the veins, and she mentions the elongated fingers.
If I ever meet somebody with elongated fingers, I'm just going to straight up ask them if they're an alien. I'm sorry if that's you listening.
Yeah, you might, yeah.
But just
be safe.
Understand that's what's going to happen. And then
if you ask someone if they're a cop, they have to tell you. If you ask someone if they're an alien, they have to tell you.
You have to tell me. I need to know. I'm not going to discriminate. I just need to know.
Right. Now, even like John Keel and his only, he believes to have been a encounter with the Men in Black. He described it as a pointed faced man is what he described it as.
Which is very interesting because that's the only time in my, I don't know. That's the only time I've heard of it being described like that, is a pointed face.
I don't know what he means by it. I guess I don't know. Maybe just sharp features.
I don't know.
I've seen people, have very sharp noses or very sharp chins. Maybe I don't know. I don't understand what he means by a pointed face man, but that was his description given. So he was already given some kind of odd appearance that this person had that he believed to be a Man in Black or a phantom photographer, as he referred to it at that time.
Interesting.
But yeah, that was the Men in Black. The beginning.
It was awesome. That was
diving into where this folklore, if you want to call it that, where this folklore began, and the three. I believe the three men who really defined what we know today as the pop culture Man in Black.
Yes. And what an amazing beginning to a tale, as I'll say.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. There's definitely a lot of players that I didn't know were involved with Men in Black in there. It gave me new perspective on the Men in Black. And it also opened my mind to think okay, what about that time period? What are different things that can happen to maybe influence the stories and whatnot? Because that's one thing that you guys probably may have or will notice about me is I love a good UFO tale. So it takes a lot to bring me down back to now this could actually happen in reality here. This can happen in our world. So you were able to do that for me, Ty, which is amazing. So it's actually really cool because then it's well, maybe it's not as many questions as what we actually.
Yeah, full disclosure. I believe in UFOs, and I believe in aliens. I believe in Bigfoot. I believe in sea monsters, and I believe in extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings.
Yes.
I believe in all this crazy stuff, but I just don't believe in ghosts. But I believe in a lot of weird things. But sometimes you have to look at this stuff and you have to be able to realize that isn't a real thing.
Right.
Me being a Bigfoot believer and a very staunch Bigfoot believer, I have Bigfoot tattooed on me, and I believe I saw Bigfoot, and I think we should get in that in some future episode. I think it'd be a fun episode to do to kind of talk about our own experiences with things.
Yes.
But I believe I have seen Bigfoot in one, maybe two cases. Even as someone who's seen that or been through that, I have to take every time someone claims they saw Bigfoot with a grain of salt because they're not always a Bigfoot, and it's not always this creature. There are things in the woods that you don't know what they are, but there's a lot easier explanation on what you might conjure up in your head.
Oh yeah.
So you got to kind of look at things with a skeptical eye to be able to see, through the bullshit and find the real hard evidence, because that's what it's all about, is finding the real evidence that's going to prove the existence of these things that you believe to exist. So
yes, here. I love it. And on that note.
So there we have it. That was Men in Black, the beginning. Next file 006. Bailey, what are you doing for your next file? Let them know.
We are going to go to Wyoming because we're going to go visit Yellowstone, but we're going to go underneath Yellowstone because we're going to be talking about the volcano underneath of Yellowstone.
Terrifying.
I am super excited. I kind of came across this when I was making the list, my infamous conspiracy list for Cult Talks Conspiracy, and I dove deeper into this. And I'm so excited for you to hear this. I cannot wait. It made me have a lot of questions, and I learned a lot of new big words.
I'm excited because that's one of the things that scares the hell out of me is that damn super volcano.
I know.
Terrifies me.
I actually thought when I first read super volcano, I thought someone made it up. No, it's an actual scientific term.
Yeah, it's an actual thing.
It's an actual term. Like they just could not. They were like, no, it's a super volcano. Like it is a volcano on steroids.
I remember I watched a show on Discovery Channel years ago. I was younger, so I was probably in junior high maybe, and it might have just been called like Yosemite Super Volcano or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it was a docudrama, where it's like half documentary and half dramatization, and it was like the volcano erupts and all the how it affects the world, and that scared the hell out of me.
It's going to be crazy. I'm super excited. I've got maps and all kinds of different things. Like I found this thing called an ash map, which is a real thing. We're gonna talk about it. It's going to be exciting. We've got some show
all the places where Ash Williams has killed Deadites. Oh, it's not that ash.
Not that ash. Okay. Not that ash. We love that ash. No, but not that ash.
Okay. I was confused.
Yeah, no,
but
the king didn't make an appearance this one. I'm sorry.
But that's going to be interesting. That's going to be file 006 here on Cult Talk Conspiracy. We're rolling out of Culttober, cutting through November, on our way to Christmas is coming up here soon. We may have something special in store for you guys for Black Friday.
Yes.
We're going to try to drop a little Black Friday special, something new. It's going to be our new concept for these special one-off episodes we want to do. So, and by all means, make sure you check out youtube.com/culttalknet, because at this time you've already seen the first episode of our YouTube exclusive podcast, Undisclosed.
Yes.
Cult Talk Conspiracy Undisclosed, which is going to be strictly on YouTube. And there's no real schedule for it. We're going to kind of just put it on there when we have interesting additions to previous episodes. This Undisclosed Session 01 will focus on Roswell and MH370. Mm-hmm. So by all means, make sure you check that out. youtube.com/culttalknet. And go to Cult Talk Net at everything. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think Ben's over on Rumble.
Yes.
We have, I feel like I'm TikTok. Which TikTok's a pain in my ass, but we still try to post there. Mainly Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, but make sure you follow us and everything.
Are we on Reddit yet?
Oh yeah, we are on Reddit. Okay. We're on Reddit. I've posted in the Bruce Campbell one, and that's about all I've done. So
I need to get on the ball with Reddit too, because I keep saying I'll talk to you on Reddit. I haven't even.
If you know how to use Reddit, by all means, because I use Reddit on my personal time, and it's not anywhere as productive as I want to be with Cult Talk Net. So
it's fun.
I'm a big fan of lolcows. I follow a lot of lolcows on my personal one. So
I love the big block creepy stories. Like the longer the creepy story, I'm like, yes.
Creepypastas.
Yes.
That's what a creepypasta is.
I love some creepypastas.
Yeah, I remember I had to explain to you what that was. That's what a creepypasta is. It's those big like internet text creepy stories.
Yep, give me a creepy pasta. I'll devour it.
Yeah, we'll have a Reddit. Hopefully by now you'll be able to go on Reddit and find us at probably like r/culttalknet or something, or r/cult talk conspiracy. But make sure you guys follow us here. Give us a rating, review our show. Make sure you're following the feed. Follow the other feeds for all the other shows. If you're a Warhammer fan, Cult of Lore.
Yes.
If you're a Bruce Campbell fan, Calda Campbell.
Yes.
And keep an eye on that YouTube because we drop exclusive stuff there all the time. And you can find Calda Lore, the video, on there, and it's a lot of in-depth, a lot more in-depth than the pod version of it. So make sure you check it out because Eric and Ben work really hard on that.
They do, and our Jipperdew makes an appearance from time to time. So if you want to go see a big drooly mastiff, go check out the Calda Lore videos, and then Calda Campbell. I always have a good time reviewing the King. He's so handsome. I mean, great.
That's on hiatus again till Christmas. That's becoming less frequent. But we will be back for Christmas. I think me and Mike, and we're trying to get Eric on board, and we're going to do a Christmas episode of Calda Campbell. Just got to see who I can convince to be on it. So.
I'll be on it. I'll do it.
Oh, all right.
He's got recorded confirmation.
You say here on the podcast. It's a verbal binding contract.
And it's recorded.
And
I've got an audience that will hold me to that.
Yeah,
like, where's Bailey? Where's she at?
So by all means, make sure you follow us on all that other stuff. We put out some good stuff, and it's fun. I'm not just saying that because I have a stake in it, but it is good. It is good content. Yeah, and Cult Talk Conspiracy. We're here every other Tuesday. So you can check us out, not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday when Bailey's going to tell us about that super volcano that's right under our feet.
Yes.
So, but I think that's it for this episode of Cult Talk Conspiracy. I'll be back at the end of November because I'm following up on this. So if you like this episode, stick here with us at Cult Talk Conspiracy because there's going to be some more Men in Black content this month.
Yes.
Super excited for it. So I think that's all we can say. Make sure you follow us at Cult Talk Net, everything.
Yes.
I've been Ty.
I've been Bailey.
And until next time.
Question everything.